All right, okay, we are here, skeleton crew and all, but nonetheless ready to represent. It's your boy Laris Hodges, aka Kid Dynamite, and then brother Rashid Muhammad, who we call Dr. X. So, nonetheless, we missed last week because of the inclement weather. I had a bunch of stuff tear up my backyard and patio furniture and whatnot, but that's okay. So we're here. Anyway, so I wanted to say something right before we get into the show, and I think that it's important to note that, there's been quite a bit of blowback from people with regards to this whole Passport Bros movement. Even along the way earlier, I had gotten a message from somebody about an individual. Wait a second. Great weekend in football, too. We'll come back to that. But nonetheless, again, I want to reiterate that this is not about, in no way, shape, form, or fashion, a protest or an abandonment towards black women. This is about the fact that we have a group of black men that are 40 plus for the most part that just want to, how could I say it, just want to live their lives. And so I did the analogy about Marshall Faulk versus Kevin Faulk. What I was saying is that Marshall Faulk is a far better running back than Kevin Faulk, but Kevin Faulk got 3 Super Bowls, Marshall Faulk had 1. And I was trying to illustrate the fact that it literally boils down to just having the right team player to accomplish what you want to accomplish. And so we understand and recognize that we have mortality, and it is very real. And we just want to kind of live our lives. So let's get into it. It's January the 19th, 2023. Okay, how you feeling today, man?
Doing all right. Just, dealing with some of these economic pressures that we're under right now.
Yeah, very serious.
But can't complain. How about you?
I can't complain either. I'm here. We made it. We figured a way. So one of the things that we want to highlight, Tia Mallory, and I don't know if anybody knew about it. She's on that show. It's not The View. It's the other show? The Talk, I think. Is that what it's called?
I don't know.
Okay. So Tia Mallory goes out to celebrate and has a ton of drinks, which is well within reason. Lord knows we've all done it. Celebrating her divorce, but she didn't seem too happy about it. It seemed a bit contradictory. Did you see it?
I did not see it, and I'm always complaining about not getting a heads up, and I got a heads up on this, and I've been a little busy, so.
No, it happens. It happens. Now, JoJo, if you see a Tia Mallory video, we'll gladly throw it in there. By the way, additionally, because we were asked, there is a oscillating Cash App handle that goes at the bottom of the screen in the event that you want to donate to the show, because people have asked how they can contribute or whatever. And that's $Kid Dynamite 052882. But yeah, so I'm gonna see if I can find it. But she goes out and is celebrating her divorce, talking about how happy she is. But the reason why we noted it as 7 drinks is because she didn't look too happy afterward.
Okay.
I mean, it just appeared to be a little contradictory.
I mean, so she didn't look too happy. I mean, she's 7 drinks in. Was she just drunk, or where's our observation here?
Yeah.
She was drinking to celebrate not her divorce. She drank too much. And so it's the idea that, I guess I can kind of get what you're getting at there, I guess, which is she's taking herself to a bad place. Like if maybe she might be happier if she weren't drinking and actually in a put yourself to a bad place.
I'm sorry. Sorry about that, sir.
Happier if she weren't drinking and actually in a
Oh, Lord.
put yourself to a bad place.
Okay. Yeah. And so, yeah. And I mean, again, I'm not here to judge. I've been through a divorce. I know how it is. I don't know if people are too happy about stuff like that. So,
I mean, well, I'm probably happy to be through with it. I know it can be an arduous process, and so. I mean, I don't know that I would ever like celebrate a divorce. Like that whole situation is not. I mean, again, we all have our perspectives on life, but this is nothing I want to celebrate. I guess with all the legal stuff just kind of getting through, it certainly caused to be relieved. But going out and like, especially like publicly, sharing videos and having a bunch of drinks and that sort of stuff. I don't know about all that.
yeah, I mean, I definitely would say the exact same thing. Okay, all right, cool. And the reason why that's important to note is because there's an apparent contradiction. If you go back and you see the video, and I mean, she is just laying it on, and she's like, I'm on, and she'll say, I'm on drink number 1, drink number 2, drink number 3, drink number 4. And her brother is there with her, and he's even a little disturbed and appears to be kind of thrown off by it. Nonetheless, we're saying that to bring it up because there is an apparent contradiction, and I think that if we're realistic in everything that we're doing and saying, that we'll get a better understanding of the fact that transparency and honesty go a long way. In this particular case, that wasn't the case. With regard to the next topic, I just wanted for honorable mention. 6-year-old shoots teacher in the abdomen. Did you hear about that?
I have heard about it. I don't know many details about it.
Okay. How do you feel about that?
About a 6-year-old shooting a teacher in the abdomen. Is that what I heard?
Mm-hmm.
Was like at school?
Mm-hmm.
So did the 6-year-old bring a gun to school and did they just like confront the teacher and shoot them, or did they have it in the bag and the teacher came up on them and they pulled it out? I mean, there's not a gigantic difference between those two things, but I'm just curious about exactly like how the interaction was kicked off.
I don't know. I mean, I just know it's unacceptable.
I mean, yeah, it is unacceptable. Maybe I'm trying to get a little too much detail here when you don't need much detail to know how messed up that is. But I would like to know just what the details are, because there's just a million different ways I can play out.
Right. All right. So the reason I say that is because Lord have mercy on my soul. The reason I say that is because is there some responsibility on the parents? Should parents be charged if their children get guns and they're below the age of 18?
I think parents should be charged if the parents own guns and the child gets access to those guns, and something like that happens. That feels reasonable to me. But I mean, if a child is just out in the world and grabs a gun and gets their hand on a gun, maybe from a friend or something like that, or picks one up, I mean, I don't really know. That feels like it requires a little bit more investigation for me. I mean, to the extent that like parents are held accountable to their children's actions, and the child has shot somebody, then there's some accountability there for sure. But I don't know that like what types of tools the kid gets their hands on in order to commit a heinous act. I don't know if that the parent necessarily needs to be charged for that, unless a parent like facilitated the access to it.
Well,
but I haven't really thought about it that much, so maybe there's more I just need to think about on that.
Okay, so the reason I say that is because obviously the parent has to facilitate. I just can't see a scenario where the child is buying, a 6-year-old is buying a gun from somebody off the streets. I'm not saying that it's impossible.
They don't have to buy it. I mean, there could be another kid at school, or maybe, a kid at school brought a gun from home or something like that. I mean, and I recently there was recently a shooting in the city, and I don't want to go into a lot of detail about it, but I do know a security guard that works in the immediate area who like found a fully loaded Glock 19 just on the sidewalk here in Atlanta. I mean, a 6-year-old could have walked by and picked that up. You know what I'm saying? So again, it's an unlikely situation.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, like I said, like if your point is just that if the parent facilitates it, then they should be held accountable. Then sure, we're on the same page there. I think the only thing we're really arguing about, I don't know, arguing is just what the odds are that would be the case or not.
Okay. All right. And the reason I bring that up, and I think that it's important to note, is because at the end of the day, you are responsible. Parenting is management. So everything that happens under your watch, you're going to get the benefit or the blame for. And
yes.
yeah, and so in my personal opinion, I cannot, while I cannot say that it's the intent of the parent for the child to be able to shoot anybody or to shoot anybody, I can say that there's a responsibility that's associated with it. If in the event that there is some sort of toxin or poison that is left accessible to a child, and for whatever reason the child ingests that, do you think that the parent will feel that way?
You mean like if they left some poison around the house, some rat poison around the house, and the kid got into it?
No, you could actually, you could put that in the category too, but I'm saying it doesn't even necessarily have to be that. It could be anything, literally. Parents put
the parents are liable.
They put plugs, they safety-proof cabinets, right?
Yeah.
They put the plastic plugs, I'm saying that there are a lot of things that we have to do. And when we start talking about guns, that's really, really serious.
Yeah, but again, I feel like the parental accountability happens by holding them accountable for the actual thing the kid did. And again, there probably are other laws. So yeah, you could pile on and just be like, if the kid used a gun that the parents in any way facilitated that, there's got to be some form of like negligence or contributing to delinquency or whatever. I'm sure that you can catch that somewhere in a legal code. But at the end of the day, like if the kid goes out and shoots somebody, then the parent has to be liable. They have to have some degree of liability there.
Yeah. Okay. All right. No, I get you. I'm with that. I'm definitely with that. The number to call in here, by the way, because somebody had asked, if they want to, is 470-251-4704. I'm going to be sharing this link with the men's group that we have. Jojo, when you get a chance, if you'll send me that link, I'm going to share it with them. Okay, so here's the big thing, the big crux, I think, of where we're going. There is a legitimate fear of men getting involved in protecting women in domestic violence disputes. Is that a legitimate fear? Should they get involved? Should they not get involved? How do you feel about that?
So you're saying if a woman is in a direct domestic violence dispute with a man, should a third party man get involved with that?
Yeah.
And what do you mean by get involved? Like, do you mean like if they're like fighting, should they like
anything? I think that what Monk had said was that there was a story recently of a woman being raped on a train, and we had a back and forth discussion about it. Should a man get involved?
I do believe that we have a moral responsibility when we see people in trouble to help. But I fully understand why people are hesitant. I had a situation not long ago when I was downtown, and there's this dude beating on this woman, and it was this weird thing where like you see that sort of stuff in public, and it takes you a while to just even like accept the reality. It's a weird thing. Like you see something super out of the ordinary happen, and there's like a delay because that can't be happening. Is that happening? And in this case, like, I hate to admit what I ended up doing. I walked around, it was right near a MARTA station. I walked around the corner to see if there's a MARTA cop, because there's usually a cop in the area that I was walking to. And he wasn't there, and so I was like, damn it. I was like, I gotta do this shit. But when I came back around and tried to confront him, like a couple of much younger dudes had like walked up on him and like had stopped it. But that was, my thing was that, so yeah, I did like go get some help, because again, you just don't know who you fucking with that sort of stuff, you know what I'm saying? And so like there's definitely some risk involved. But yeah, I do believe that you need to try to help out somebody who's in distress.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I want there to be help. But let's just think about it like this. If people are getting into it in public, right? Who is it incumbent upon? One party or both parties? Because when people start getting into it in public, they've reached a level of pistivity that is just...
Yeah, getting at it in public and like raping somebody, which is I think the initial thing we talked about, are two very different things.
Right.
And yeah, people just being loud and rude and whatever. I see that all the time.
Yeah.
It's when I just see like actual blows, and particularly if it's just like a one-way thing, where there's like clearly an aggressor, and particularly if that aggressor is a man against a woman, and particularly if it's a man against a much smaller woman. I think that there are varying degrees of seriousness there, and degrees of obligation to like try to do something to defuse the situation.
They say that when people feel guilty, they kind of tend to hide and wait till they get home, or throw rocks and hide their hands. That's a very high level of pistivity when you start talking about men openly saying, I don't even give a damn if somebody sees what's going on.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so even like with the Will Smith thing, right? I feel like that's a whole other thing.
Okay. Sure.
Okay.
Clearly, yeah, for a dude to do that. But again, dudes are, people are just not all the same. Some of the workers have a shorter fuse than others.
Yeah.
Some cats are just easy to get to do that sort of shit,
Oh, with black men, I think that they know, man, it's hell coming. They have...
Black men. There's a bunch of men that are black, and they have different histories and different situations and different predispositions, and so I don't take anything for granted there. I think that as individuals, some people just be set off more than others.
Yeah, I understand, but you have to be really set off, because you already know as a man, if you get into it with a woman in public, you already know that that's going to come with potential male involvement. And I'm wondering if in my mind that they're doing it because they want a man to get involved. And I guess that's where I was kind of going with it. Like, are they doing it because they really want to knock the hell out of this person, but they can't? But if you get involved, they can take the frustration out on you.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Again, I think that this did start out with talking about rape, which I think is a very different situation there.
Well, I wasn't there, and I don't know. That's pretty bold.
That is pretty bold. I've heard some stories. But yeah, it could certainly be that. It could be that, yeah, that, I never really thought about that. That could be the case.
Okay.
So, which would definitely, again, which is a whole other reason to be cautious about intervening in those types of situations. But, Now,
I was at South DeKalb Mall, right there by Fletcher's, and I saw something much like that, and I wouldn't have dreamed of gotten involved in it. Especially after what I heard that happened at the gas station over there off Candler Road. And, I'm just saying that to say...
what, you act like everybody knows everything? What happened at the gas station at Candler Road?
A guy jumped in the middle of a domestic dispute and got shot and killed.
Yeah.
And then she rolled off with the guy.
Yeah, I believe it. I totally believe it.
Yeah, and so the reason I bring it up is because... Okay. At the end of the day, when you start getting involved in people's business, particularly anything domestic, there's a permanent stain for the person, whether it's not something volatile in terms of death, but in a lot of instances, they end up reconciling with the individual. And then the individual is going to have a problem with that person. You know, and I'm just saying that I don't know.
There are three people we're talking about here. There are the two people that had the conflict, and then there's the person that intervened. When you start talking about this person, that person, it's very unclear for me to understand what. So you're saying that the two people that had the beef, that they will most likely reconcile.
Correct.
And you said someone had a problem with that person. Are you talking about the person they reconciled with, or the person that tried to intervene?
The person that tried to intervene.
Okay.
Now, I've seen it a million times, over and over and over again. And it's not just because there's this idea that, for whatever reason, people forgive, and they do forgive. And then there's an inherent, I think, there are parties that will never admit guilt, but they make it up by their actions because deep down inside, maybe they know they did something wrong. They won't say that I did something wrong, but they may go back to the person, or they may stay with the person, or they may forgive the person. And then there's a real Stockholm syndrome associated with these matters.
Sure. I still think we need to do. I do think that we're all. There is a social contract that we don't act a fucking fool in public, especially if you're beating up on people. So I feel like there's still an obligation. I mean, so part of it is like management of the public square, and by public square, I mean that kind of literally ish, which is to say, like in my case, like near a MARTA station. I mean that's like public area, right?
Okay, so now we're getting to the meat and potatoes. Why should you not get into it in public?
I think that's well. Number one, it's illegal. Like there are charges of disorderly conduct.
It's illegal if you do it at home.
Well, sure. I guess.
What are we talking about? We talking about yelling?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, yeah.
Again, from my standpoint, I'm thinking about the situation I saw. Right.
Yeah, sure.
Again, they're like disorderly conduct is a thing that happens in the public square. So I am. If it happens in your home, like I don't have a right to your home. You know what I'm saying? I have a right in the public square. Like everybody has a right. When there's a commons, whether that commons is on the street, whether that commons is like in my store. Like you come to my store with that shit. Like I don't want that shit in my store. You know what I'm saying?
Would you, if you ever went into a church, would you punch somebody in a church?
I mean, I won't punch anybody anywhere.
You're a very good guy.
I mean, if I have to defend myself, but I'm saying, like, are you saying if someone tried to punch me in the church, would I punch them back? Is that what you're saying? I would not be aggressive anywhere. This is not my thing, whether it's a church.
Okay.
But I will be defensive.
Okay. All right, I would punch someone in the church.
I mean, just to punch them, or you got beef with somebody who's going
to... Oh, no. There's not a safe place if you have beef with me.
I mean,
yeah, there's no. What I'm saying is that, and what people do is they deliberately do things in places of where they believe that it's just there's a social stigma attached to making a scene.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's tactical. Yeah. That's not something that just happens because nobody gets that upset about somebody changing their mind about what they want at 2 urban licks. There's a lot of stuff that's been going on.
I don't know, man. I mean, I used to have a friend, and I actually still have him as a friend, amazingly, who was just notorious for just losing his fucking mind in public. And I have been kicked out of multiple places hanging out with this cat. And it's just, ain't nothing strategic about it. He just has no damn sense when he gets to a certain point. He just has no sense.
Okay, got it.
And so, I mean, I feel what you're saying. I mean, it sounds like a perfectly legitimate point that there are people that are trying to make scenes and maybe they're trying to invite aggression that they can use to rechannel some frustrations that they have. Mm-hmm. That makes sense to me.
Because then the question becomes, what is the reward for having great decorum?
I mean, so I think that is a.
What's the reward and what's the loss? I mean, obviously the loss of freedom is serious, but
I mean, it's a function of. But again, like if it depends on where you are. Like if you do that shit in like your neighborhood, restaurant or whatever, everybody goes, everybody hangs out, and there's a expectation that y'all behave properly, then the cause is that you do get a stigma attached to you. You may not be allowed to come back. If you're like up in Buckhead, you don't live nowhere near Buckhead, you do something like that, that's a different situation, and that has a different set of costs. Though I'd argue if you did it up in Buckhead, you're probably more likely to get arrested up there. But there's like the proximity of the behavior to public spaces that you care about, if that makes sense.
Okay. All right. Now that makes sense. All right. So, I went growing up, and I know you came up in this era too. You know that you could get whipped in a grocery store.
Yes. I can't. I don't remember for sure, but I most likely did get whipped at least once.
I have too. And the idea behind it was that,
and just to like grab your arm and just pop, pop, pop. It was just that
right, exactly. Like, don't think because we're in this grocery store, I won't whip your ass in front of everybody.
Right. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Like, you're not gonna act up on me out in public.
Right.
And a lot of that is rooted in us as individuals. But not to mention, there is generally an idea. It's the same way with men versus men, where somebody gets loud and they kind of buck on somebody based off of, oh, what? Oh, you trying to roll up on me? And what happens? So then everybody can run and get in between them, and they can appear to be tough or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm just saying in general, and so when it comes to, there's a heightened sense of tension right now in our community from men to women. This thing is, it's so much gasoline around it. The wrong match is going to spark and blow everything up. And I'm just saying that to say that people rely on safe places to act up. And I'm not saying that there aren't lunatics. By someone's definition, they might say, well, Laris is a lunatic. I'm not a lunatic. It's just that, 1 + 1 = 2 no matter where we are. I don't have to exude professional decorum. And it doesn't take but an opportunity or two for people to see that. One thing I can say is this. Unless somebody is trying to set me up in my life or to get messed up, when I have a falling out with somebody to that magnitude, I know I will never have a falling out with them again. Because they'll be like, it's no safe place. You know what I mean? It's just, you know what I mean? But I don't bring smoke to people. You know what I mean? I don't bring it. And I regret some of the times in my life that I've did it, because the alternative would have been to, just not even, just discontinued the nature of the relationship for whatever reason, And I did that with Taylor on her 13th birthday. And, and I feel bad about it. I really do.
Publicly, what did you do?
Well, me and her mother had an exchange.
Oh, so you and her, it was you and her mother.
Yeah, And so I think that the reason why this discussion is important is because I think we have to look at things like this at the end of the day. There are societal boundaries that we hold ourselves to as men. But on the flip side, other people don't hold themselves to boundaries.
Sure. But
that's not an excuse, but what I'm saying is that if the rule book is thrown out, the rule book is thrown out.
Look, man. So there's like 9 different angles on this that are in my head right now.
There are women who will have sex with a man that are married in that man's house. Now that's crazy. You want to talk about gangster? That's gangster.
I mean, yeah, I guess. I suppose. I guess there are a couple things here. So one.
Have you ever done? Have you? You know what? I'm not gonna ask. I'm not gonna put you on the spot. Okay, go ahead.
You know, I've never done anything like that. But I guess. But the thing is that like, some people think that's gangster. Some people don't. I mean, we live in a world where we live in an increasingly culturally fractured world where expectations like that very specific thing you talked about, that very specific code that you talk about, like 50 years ago, maybe 90% of people will believe that because it was more of a monoculture in this country. The country's way more diverse now, and there are way more ways of thinking now, and so that probably is not as universally held a norm. I'm pretty sure it's probably fairly universal. I think most people would agree with what you're saying there. But there are two sides to that, right? So number one, like there's never been a case where like everybody just lives exactly by the same rule book. I mean, certainly when you get into more like theocratic type, homogenous groups, you get closer to that. But the other thing is just to like the will of the society to like enforce these rules. So it was I remember during COVID, real super quick, excuse me.
Listen.
My lady, she worked at a restaurant, and there was a whole thing about like whether restaurants enforce people to have masks and all this kind of stuff. And she was just telling about how like the restaurant owners were like leaning on the city to do a mask mandate so that the restaurant owners could be like, oh, you can't wear a mask, that's just the law, right? Not them like actually protecting their space. Like if they like personally believe that people should not be able to come in here without a mask, was totally in their right to do, regardless of what the city said to do. But instead of like doing that and standing up to that, they wanted to like be able to like put it on some other agent, not their own agency over their space, but like the government's agency over their space.
Right.
And that could be because they maybe it could be that the restaurant owners didn't actually care about masks. It was only the employees that cared about masks, and so they wanted to be able to fall back on the government so that they could just
or certain people maybe they didn't want to serve and they were just using that as
yeah. So I mean the point though is that like, so it's one thing that we all kind of have our own rule books. That the law, as we talk about, is a rule book that we kind of all live under, and we follow it to different degrees or whatever. But I definitely think that, and I mean, I think COVID is a great example of how like the proclivity to, whether it's in the restaurant or whether it's like the homeless camps and tents and stuff like that, whether it's any number of things, like all these new DAs talk about how they're not enforcing particular laws that are still on the books. Laws are still on the books. They're still laws, but they're just not going to enforce that stuff. And I mean, I think that is like a big part of just how we exist now, which is that there's a deterioration of like the enforcement of norms. And then you put that on top of you put the deterioration of enforcement on top of just a broadening number of perspectives on whether those norms are even legitimate or not, and you end up in a weird place.
No, I mean I certainly agree with that, and I wanna take it a step further with regard to that. So when the rule books start getting thrown out, right? And I hate to go back to this Passport Bros thing, but I have just gotten, I thought that my political philosophy had gotten me in a lot of hot water with our community, even though it's the best thing for our community is a revert back to tradition, I think, and family and God, etc. There's something different about this movement, this Passport Bros movement, that just has everybody stirred up.
So and what exactly is Passport Bros?
Just basically men who are declaring, much like a Brexit movement, they're just declaring that they're seeking wives in other cultures and countries, and
okay.
And it is. I mean, the Moors have already done it anyway. That's why you have Aztec look the Mayan ruins and the facial features and all that. They've gone everywhere, and they've made it with all these cultures. But this is something particularly that really is getting under the skin of a lot of our women. And I wish that she had come today so I could have that discussion, but she didn't make it.
I mean, is it a lot of our women, or is it just particularly vociferous women that don't actually represent the majority of women? Because I do think that, like, and it's not just with women, but I think the question is always, are the people you're interacting with actually representative of the group that you are projecting onto them, right?
I don't know, but at our age by now, you figured you'd come across both. I mean, the law of averages says that you should. I mean, hell, even a garbage gets a steak. Garbage can't get a steak. I mean, I'm just saying, and maybe we weren't mature enough. Well, excuse me. Let me speak for me. Maybe I wasn't mature enough to recognize, some of the things that had slipped through my fingers. But, I think that maturity comes with wisdom. Wisdom comes with experience, and to properly be effective as head of household, the way that God's design is that you have to be slightly weathered and experienced anyway to really do the job properly. There's this level of patience associated with time in life, right? And so, here's the issue, though. The people who oppose what we talk about and the agenda that we push, the real question is, there's nothing wrong. I think we work backwards like an algebraic problem. Like you work, or algebraic expression per se. We work backwards from results. So it's okay to have a difference of opinion or to demonize me or any of these other guys per se for saying that there are other options. The issue at hand is, what are the results of the people who are anti our position? Now, if they are happily situated, that's one thing. But if they are not, then even they have to admit that the approach that they have taken towards things is not a good approach. And can we start working backwards from results?
Yeah, I think that's fair, and I think there are even bigger implications of what you're talking about here. So
let's go. I mean, we got time.
So so let me just make sure I fully am comprehending what you're saying here. So you talk about passport bros, the idea that like you find women that just have more traditional values and mores than typical women in the dating pool,
right?
Like you go to I don't know, you go to Nigeria or you go to Eastern Europe or whatever, Brazil. And the idea is that, and the implication of what you're saying is that like women in the dating pool right now, they have these untraditional values of things like family and things, these very more conservative values they don't have. So if that's what you're getting at, I mean, I support finding the type of woman that's in line with what you're looking for. And you certainly don't have no man.
Yeah, but there's an outrage associated with that amongst our community.
I mean, nobody, like, they don't have to date you. I'm sure they can. I don't know if they're gonna necessarily find. I don't know what the market of. I'm sure there are plenty of men that just want to go out there and smash a bunch of women with like no consequences. I don't know what the like ratio of men who like want to do that forever and never want to settle down and have a family is, right? But I think when I talk about the bigger implications, now that I know that we're on the same page here, I mean, there are bigger implications for even like liberal policy making, which is that when you want to have like this gigantic welfare state, like somebody's got to pay for that, right? Like you want to have like Social Security, you want to be retired on Social Security, well, you need a generation behind you to pay for it. And if you're having kids, And you keep on adding on. You got Medicare and Medicaid and Affordable Care Act and basic income, universal basic income, all this sort of stuff. Which, and there's a whole lot of complexity there around like whether those things necessarily discourage having children or not. But I think the math is fairly clear that if you start piling all this stuff on, while at the same time you're not creating more workers that can actually help pay for it, then you're not going to be in a good situation. And I mean, you can import workers, but the problem is that, I mean, there's a global market for imported workers. And I got to tell you, like, culturally, I think the United States is starting to lose a lot of the luster that it's had to, like, attract immigrants over here who'd want to work. I mean, maybe not Mexicans, maybe not that kind of labor, but I mean, like, the skilled labor, I can't tell you how many, like, highly skilled immigrants I know that are just, like, crazy. Just so, and this is the last thing I'm gonna say, I'm sorry, but like,
No,
so
no, I meant, no, you hit it hard.
Youngkin in Virginia, who beat Terry McAuliffe. Glenn Youngkin, I think was his name. The Republican upset Terry McAuliffe, who had been governor of Virginia, right? And the key thing there, was around schools. That was like the big reason that he won, and it was because of the school thing. And like, what was happening is that, like, the Democrats trying to make it out to be, he's anti-trans and yada yada yada. But what had happened was, in Loudoun County, there was this big situation where this student who, like, dressed as a girl had, like, sodomized a girl in the girl's bathroom. And then the administrators of the school had, like, transferred this kid to, like, another school where he did the same thing or something very similar. And, like, the parents were really pissed off about this. And a lot of parents that were pissed off were, like, Asian, like, Indian, like, East Asian, whatever. Like, a lot of people that were pissed off were immigrants. And they're like, this is some bullshit. Like, we standing for this. Just like when they start talking about this equity stuff and, like, making these schools that you used to have to be a high achiever to get in, and they start taking that stuff away. And, like, it was these immigrant parents that, like, spend all this time getting their kids ready to go into these schools. And so they see that these people are trying to do this stuff. They're like, oh, hell no. And so, but that's the thing is that, like, a lot of the advantages that they saw coming over here, that stuff is being dismantled. And this place, over time, if a lot of these trends continue, potentially becomes less attractive to, like, that type of immigrant, right? The ones that come over and, like the Sergey and the Larrys that started Google, and Steve Jobs was the child of immigrants. And, like, all these people that come over and, like, do all these, Andy Grove, I think his parents are immigrants who started Intel. And all these kids, these high-achieving Asian families whose kids are just raising these awesome, these are awesome people that have great values, and they raise like fully realized kids, and like they're just not for this bullshit.
No.
And so, so again, just getting back to the original point, which is that, like, you start to create a country that is less attractive to immigrants. Like, a lot of all these policies that we're talking about, and more importantly, you just create a situation where you say that people like freedom, because they'd be like, oh, well, people need dignity or whatever. But dignity is, like, defined as, like, living off a government check. Like, being able to buy stuff because the government gives you the money. And, like, that's what they think is dignity. Just like affordability is, like, the government can pay for it. So I can get it because the government can pay for it. Not like my economic situation is good and the regulatory environment is sane, so that I can actually just buy this thing out of pocket, and it creates a sustainable ecosystem. All right, I'm done.
No. I mean, I agree with you, and I think that was a very good point that you brought up with regard to the unattractiveness from immigrants, because, and it speaks to the whole notion of passport bros, simply because the passport bros that travel are abandoning but black men don't even want to be a part of Western culture, because it's sickening. It is just sickening. It's filled with unrealistic expectations. it's a microwave society amongst our women. They want to do nothing and have it. It's boiled down to, I'm here. Well, here it is. What do you bring to the table? I'm here. You're welcome. You know what I mean? And I'm serious, man. I mean, and so I don't even know where this came from.
I don't know if that's Western culture. I mean,
you don't know.
I know you're talking to a very specific thing, which is like a culture of entitlement. Like what you're talking about there is just entitlement. And you could argue that that's like consumerism, and that's like that. Certainly, there's like if you look at American culture over the last 50 years, and it's way more vapid now, right? It's just like, and it's what you said, like it's like. And I noticed 20 years ago I was dating this girl who cared more about looking like she did the thing than actually being the thing, right? And that I remember seeing that and being like, what is this? Like, that's not what I was always, no, look, certainly, early on in my career, like, there was definitely some fake it till you make it stuff going on there. But the goal was always to, like,
actually make it.
Right?
Yeah.
Not to just fake it forever, right?
Right.
And so, I think there's a lot of faking it now, and there is no desire to, like, take it another step. But there's a good question, like, what exactly that is.
Right.
Like, some people call it, like, late-stage capitalism. I call it a culture that has become unmoored from, and it's basically what you're talking to, that's become unmoored from, like, a fundamental value system. It's so unmoored to just anything. You just like attention is the thing, right? Or it's like all these very like base desires that like, whether it's religion or ideology, whatever, where these social systems been set up over time, because humans have realized how susceptible we can be to this type of temptation, because things look easy and they're not easily, and all that sort of stuff, and like. All kinds of systems have been put in place to help mitigate that and keep people grounded. And I think what's happened is we've become unmoored from that stuff. And so there's nothing that anchors us down. And then that's what you get. You get people that are just blowing in the wind and are lost. But I mean, there are a lot of people that are not lost. And that's why I hesitate to just call it like Western culture, right?
Well, all the ones that aren't lost are taken. Maybe not all, but all right. So, I mean, not all, but what was a needle in a haystack type of thing? And so, if I lived in Siberia, right, and I moved to Baltimore's cold. But if I moved from Siberia to Baltimore, I probably wouldn't think Baltimore's cold. If I moved from Miami to Baltimore's cold. And so what I'm trying to illustrate with that is, okay, so to your point, and I very much agree with you, the idea of getting a different culture, shit, they sleeping on the floor. They'd be happy as hell to come over here. Can I get some fried chicken, rice-a-roni, and broccoli with cheese? I don't even want a lot. But can I get some, can I get some red Kool-Aid too? Not cherry, red. Because that's how we have to say it in our culture. But what I'm saying, and so it's, I'm just saying that to say, I think that when you get to a certain age, I remember, man, Dr. Roger Williams, at microeconomics professor at Morehouse College, told me one time. He's like, yeah, man. He's like, man, we were vibrant in the 60s and 70s, and now I'm showing you how old I am. Well, you know how old I am. And, he was an older guy, when I was in college, and he was like, man, we're going to change the world. The Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee with Stokely Carmichael and all that was big at that time. And he's like, Hodges, you're going to get to a point one day where you're going to be like, can we just keep the kitchen clean?
I know.
And he'd be like, hey, man, you know how to use a vacuum cleaner? Yeah, right. Do you know, here, go Mei Ling, do you know how to do this? Can you do that? I'd be like, all right, cool. Let's run it, man. I got your bills. Drive my car. Shit, I'll walk. I don't even give a damn. You get what I'm saying? That you get to a point.
Realizing what's actually important.
Right.
The high-minded stuff is cool when you're young, but yeah, at some point you're just trying to function. I get that.
And that's it, because we black men have the lowest of subgroups. We have the lowest life expectancy, and so we start getting in our 40s. We start saying that. Well, yeah, we do want to fix the black community. And we can, but shit, I got to be happy at home before I can fix that. I got to have, you know what I mean? I'm like, this is ridiculous, man. I mean, like, you as a black man, you got to be a damn thug minister. You got to be 6 feet tall. You got to make $100 million a year. A poet. You got to know how to pimp, beat ass, sell dope. I mean, you know what I mean? Have war wounds and stuff. Actually, I'm talking about myself. But anyway, here's the point. What I'm saying is that, but you get what I'm saying? It's like you got to know how to be chivalric, kind. I mean, like there's this. If one box is unchecked, you're unqualified.
I don't know, man. That just was not my. I mean, maybe things have changed in the years since I've been dating, man. But that just was never my experience. I hear that a lot. When I was dating, it was just not my experience. I mean, the women that I dated had their expectations were not all that. All what you're talking about. And I know you're exaggerating the stuff you're talking about there.
I'm pushing the envelope.
Yes.
I'm pushing it. Yeah.
But I mean, for the most part, they were just like, are you going to be a burden on me? You know what I'm saying? Like, it was like the standards were not super high. They were just like, I don't want to take care of anybody. Like, you don't have to take care of me. I take care of myself. But like, just don't like. I don't want to be like, paying your bills or anything like that. That was the general vibe that I got. And look, they want you to be nice and all the stuff that women generally want about in a partner and that sort of stuff. But like, it did not come across to me that they wanted it. That they just had like incredibly unreasonable expectations. But I can't claim to have dated. I may have dated 20 women. So I mean, that ain't, that's not an extraordinarily high number of women.
That's it, just 20 women. You did, okay.
Yeah, but to your earlier point, I mean, that's enough.
That is enough. That's a good enough sample size. Yeah.
But two quick things. I mean, so the whole passport bros thing is basically you're talking about like dating market arbitrage is what you're talking about.
Exactly.
And I mean, fair enough on that, man. I don't think that there's and again, back in the day, like the passport bro stuff was just like dating white women, right? Or it was just like dating outside of your race was like the arbitrage thing. You're like finding opportunities outside of like the normal area.
And white women have come after me on my own page, and shouts out to them. I'm very happy about it. I mean, I haven't like pursued anything, but they do express interest. Now, I wanna ask you this: could JoJo, do you think that you could take a girl to Applebee's on a date?
You said, could I take a girl to Applebee's on a date?
Yeah. You can?
Yeah.
Where are they?
Well, you say that one more time?
You have girls that will let you take them to Applebee's?
Yeah. Especially you go to the bar and get some drinks and stuff. Why not?
On a date?
Huh?
On a date?
Yeah. When you go to Walmart, walk around, they with me. They like my vibe. So wherever we go, we gonna have a blast regardless.
Yeah. I mean, we talked before, like when I was dating, like I would take these women to coffee shops, which is like the cheapest date ever.
And they
would come, and we'd be happy. Like I'd always get like a second date. But they just kind of get to know. It's a low stakes environment where number one, you don't feel obligated to like spend all this money on dinner and all this sort of stuff, and then all the complexity about expectations that comes after that. Like you just take all that off the table and just get to know the person,
Yeah, okay, cool. Well, man, y'all brothers are something else, man. I mean, I admire it.
I think the question is, where are you dating these women? Where you find these women? That's the question.
Atlanta. So that already
so Atlanta ain't one place. Anyway.
You done asking me though?
That
was all the questions you had?
I just was thinking, I was like, Queen. She on the phone? Okay. Well, I'm gonna leave her alone.
What was your point of asking that? Like girls ain't, you don't think they'll go with it or be with it?
We had to go to Applebee's?
Yeah.
That's
what he's doing.
Man, damn, bro.
I'm telling you, man, there's plenty of women, plenty of black women that will.
They will go. They probably don't like the dude when they usually suckers. Like, man, bro, these girls like you, bro. You can go to walk. You can go to.
I'm not saying I haven't been. I'm just saying that it appears.
Yeah, man.
I took her to American Deli. You go to American Deli, get a 10-piece. You go to Applebee's. Come on with it, like just be a
Look, brother.
Look, if a woman likes you, man, she'll bend over backwards to give you a chance.
Yeah. Now, my little girlfriend I was dating, man, I didn't have a problem, man, getting public wings and a public sub sandwich. So, I'm talking about that was our first hangout.
Yeah,
but.
That boy Drake said chicken wings and fries, we don't go on dates. If you will get that, man, look, that's the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah. I'm kind of an ambassador of men. At any rate, so I just hear the horror stories, man. People hit me with stuff. Yeah. So, nonetheless, I just want to say that. And, I think that quality control, manage expectations. And we're going to get this thing together one way or another. I might the booty bandit up the guy in prison, the black guy. Like, we can do this the easy way or we can do it the hard way. So I think that there's a change coming to our community. East Point, smoke some dank.
Old National got the skanks.